I'm Kris. This is 46 BC, Caesar's most complicated campaign. This is 29 minutes, so I'm going to break it down into two 15-minute videos. We'll go with that. Video.
Caesar's campaign in Africa had been off to a bad start. He had rushed the invasion, underestimating his opponents, and as a result suffered a minor defeat, was badly outnumbered and poorly supplied. However, as we have seen before, Caesar was often most deadly when backed into a corner. Rather than rushing again, Caesar now focused on collecting reinforcements and supplies, preparing for the upcoming Battle of Thapsus. Gods, I hate Gauls. Oops, sorry, wrong script. But can you blame us? This video is sponsored by Total War Rome Remastered, so our nostalgia is only natural. The good news is the developer, Creative Assembly, managed to find a perfect formula for support our channel and pre-order the definitive version of one of the best strategy games ever by clicking the link in the description.
Anyone ever played Total War? I haven't.
Caesar's first priority was improving the defenses of Ruspina and creating entrenchments from the town to his camp and to the sea. In doing so, Caesar ensured his communication lines would be kept safe, while also providing a safe landing ground for any reinforcements and supplies. Caesar had been surprised by Labienus' tactic of mixing light troops with cavalry, and decided to mimic it, pulling light marines and archers off his ships in order to do so. Meanwhile, Scipio was en route to unite his force with Labienus and Petreius, bringing with him almost all of the Optimate leaders and the entirety of their army, bringing its total to more than 60,000. Such an army would have already been larger than the one Pompey had, and to make matters worse for Caesar, there was also a possibility that the king of Numidia, Juba, would join Scipio with his own force, including its famed elephants. With fortifications improved, Caesar turned his attentions to supplies. The Optimates had previously stripped the area of corn, and most of the local workforce was pressed into their army, making the harvest of that year particularly poor. Caesar was forced to purchase supplies from wealthy individuals living in the area, and rationed them out to his army. A number of his scattered transports were hunted down by the Optimate navy and were captured or burned. Caesar ordered the remainder of his vessels to patrol the harbour of Ruspina, to keep the area clear for the anticipated arrival of troops and supplies from Sicily. Just when things were starting to look disastrous, Caesar had a stroke of luck. The Optimate army under Scipio had paused briefly at Utica, where Cato, the figurehead and political leader of the faction, was based. While the army was there, Cato began chastising Pompey's sons for failing to achieve as much as their father had by their age. Shamed and hoping to prove—
Well, if Cato saw that, why didn't he jump out and grab a sword and lead some people in? Piece of shit.
Prove himself, Gnaeus took 2,000 slaves and freedmen and attacked the nearby kingdom of West Mauritania, ruled by King Bogard. The Mauritanians lured Gnaeus close to the town of Ascarum before sallying out and quickly defeating the small force. Humiliated, Gnaeus withdrew to the Balearic Islands, but his actions had far-reaching consequences. Having left a sizable garrison at Utica, Scipio now marched to Labienus and Petreius, uniting the two armies and establishing camp 5 kilometers from Caesar's position. They immediately—
I was thinking of the right person. Cato was a politician, right? He didn't lead anyone in the battle. Or am I thinking of someone else? Because I see his face down here now. So I'm wondering if I'm thinking of somebody else. I could be.
Began using their large cavalry forces to keep Caesar within his fortifications, making his supply situation even worse. Juba began marching to his allies, hoping to assist in a quick and definitive win over Caesar. But Gnaeus' actions now showed their consequence. The king of East Mauritania, Bocchus, heard of Juba's departure and invaded Numidia to avenge the Optimate attack on his brother Bogud. Commanding the Mauritanian armies was Publius Sittius, who had been operating in Africa as a mercenary since the Catiline conspiracy. He successfully captured the Numidian city of Cirta and then proceeded to pillage and sack the surrounding area. By this point, Juba had almost reached Scipio, but upon hearing the news, pulled back to defend Numidia. Meanwhile, some of the local citizens had begun sending messages to Caesar, complaining of the harsh rule of the Optimates. Some towns even requested garrisons, pledging to feed and house them in return, an offer Caesar gladly accepted, sending 3 cohorts in order to improve his supply situation. Initially, Caesar planned to wait for better weather to ensure his troops would make the crossing from Sicily safely, but now he ordered that they be sent no matter the conditions, showing how desperate he was. Scipio was not idle while all this was going on. Labienus, in command of the majority of the Optimate cavalry, kept up a relentless harassment campaign, fighting a number of skirmishes with Caesar's cavalry that ventured out to patrol. Labienus kept searching for ways of keeping Caesar's forces occupied, including attacking the towns of Leptis and Aquila, but he was repelled by Caesar's cohorts now garrisoned there. Nevertheless, these attacks were effective at keeping the pressure on Caesar. Similarly, Scipio would march his army out of camp every day and draw them into battle formation, including the elephants, hoping to intimidate the recruits in Caesar's army. Caesar made a show of indifference, keeping his men at work on their fortifications, but he never drew up his own army for battle. He knew that for any chance of victory, he would need more men, particularly more veterans. His best play was to keep his men behind their fortifications of trenches and palisades and bide his time. His patience paid off. Sallust had arrived in Kirkina, the site of a large Optimate grain supply, which was poorly defended. He easily chased off the garrison and immediately sent the supplies to Caesar. Simultaneously, 2 experienced legions, the 13th and 14th, were finally dispatched from Lilybaeum. Good luck with the weather and Caesar's patrolling fleet allowed all the legions and supplies to arrive at Ruspina with relative ease. Soon after, Scipio sent 2 Gaetulian spies into Caesar's camp to assess the new situation. However, the Gaetuli, who had greatly benefited from the actions of Caesar's uncle-in-law, Gaius Marius, during and after the Jugurthine War, immediately defected to Caesar. They informed him of Scipio's numbers and the morale of his men, in particular that the Optimate 4th and 6th legions were wavering and eager to join Caesar. Though Scipio and Labienus had done well to keep up the pressure, they had delayed too long and lost the initiative. Caesar now had the men and supplies he needed to go on the offensive, and wanted to force a battle with Scipio before the Numidian army would return.
He probably wants to defeat Scipio, because Scipio has never lost a battle in Africa. So if he can take it to him immediately and win, maybe that throws the morale for the other troops. You know, I mean, it lifts his up, but it throws the morale of the others like, oh my goodness, you know, my thinking. I paused it right before commercial. What is it with this game? It looks stupid. I hate the ad.
On the 25th of January, he sent the transports back to Sicily to get the rest of his army, and then marched his full force out of the camp. His first objective was to take and fortify the semicircle ridge of hills that surrounded the town. Looking to use similar tactics to those at Dyrrhachium, Caesar quickly seized as many of these hills as he could, ordering fortifications to be built to create a line of palisades across the tops of the hills. Hoping to force Caesar back to his original position, Scipio marched his full army out of camp with Labienus in command of the vast cavalry force, drawing up for battle. Caesar initially thought this was a bluff, but when the enemy approached in formation, he drew his legions up on the hills for battle, sending a small detachment of Spanish auxiliaries to seize one hill still held by Scipio. The Numidians holding the position there were quickly chased away, and Labienus led the majority of his right wing of cavalry to cover their retreat. Caesar noticed that Labienus had moved too far from the main Optimate battle line, and sent his own left wing of cavalry to charge through the hole, before turning back to attack Labienus from the rear. A large estate prevented Labienus from seeing this movement until the enemy cavalry was already behind him. With the cavalry pushing from his rear, and the Spanish auxiliaries attacking from the front, Labienus was caught in a pincer and ordered a withdrawal. He and the fast Numidian horsemen were able to extract themselves, but his Gallic and Germanic cavalry was slower. They were surrounded, and despite brave resistance, cut down to a man. Seeing that his right flank was in shambles, Scipio quickly ordered a retreat and pulled back to his camp. Feeling robbed, Caesar did the same. However, soon he tried to force a battle again, this time marching his army towards the town of Uzica, a major water source for Scipio, which was located just outside the Optimate camp. Scipio marched his army out of camp, positioning them on either side of the town in a strong defensive position. Eagerly, Caesar again drew his men up for battle, but was reluctant to attack Scipio in such a strong location. For the remainder of the day, the armies stood opposite each other until Caesar ordered a retreat. Frustrated once more, Caesar returned to his camp and continued to further fortify his position on the ridge. Scipio had been delaying for a good reason. Immediately after the cavalry skirmish where the Gallic and Germanic cavalry had been lost, he had sent word to Juba demanding his help. Juba, who owed his kingdom to Pompey, obliged. He left his general Sabura, the victor of Bagradas, to fight Citius, and marched to Scipio with 3 Numidian legions trained in the Roman style, 800 heavy cavalry, more light infantry and cavalry, and 30 more elephants. The Optimates now had 8 Roman and 3 Numidian legions, approximately 55,000 men, almost 16,000 cavalry, 60 elephants, and perhaps as many as 20,000 light infantry, a total of around 90,000 men, a truly colossal force.
Wow.
Scipio thought that it was his turn to go on the offensive. His fleet had been hunting down any of Caesar's ships that had been blown astray in the crossing from Sicily, and the prisoners were brought to him. He now displayed a number of captured veterans of the 14th outside his camp, and had them tortured to death there and their bodies left outside. He also once again began drawing his army out of camp every day to further intimidate Caesar and his men. These actions had the opposite effect, however. The execution of his men enraged Caesar, and he was also encouraged by Juba's numbers. They weren't as significant as he feared, which meant that Citius was distracting much of the Numidian force, and confirmed that Scipio had no more aces left up his sleeve. Following this, a deadlock emerged. Both sides regularly drew up for battle, but no serious engagement was fought, neither wanting to be the one to attack a fortified opponent. A number of cavalry skirmishes were fought, with neither side able to gain a significant advantage over the other. 2 more veteran legions, the 10th and 9th, arrived, and Caesar attempted to use them to break the stalemate, constructing 2 long entrenchments from his camp to Utica, despite the constant harassment from Labienus's cavalry. A new camp was made at the end of these entrenchments, where siege weapons such as scorpions and catapults were constructed, and began bombing.
What are scorpions? What are scorpions?
Bombarding Utica. Caesar's constant pressure and the close proximity of his new camp to that of Scipio's encouraged some of the Optimate troops, mainly Gaetulians, but also a number of men from the 4th and 6th legions, to change sides. Scipio couldn't allow this to go on, and once again ordered his army to get into battle formation. Caesar did the same, but the broken ground in front of Scipio's army dissuaded him from attacking, despite the two armies now being less than 200 meters apart. After squaring off for half a day, Caesar withdrew back into camp. That is when Labienus launched an attack on Caesar's retreating cavalry and light infantry. The legions were close enough to prevent a complete disaster, but the attack gave Caesar food for thought. It was only a matter of time before Labienus was able to strike a deadly blow with his superior cavalry numbers. Soon word was sent that the last two legions Caesar pegged for this campaign, the 7th and 8th, were en route from Sicily.
Oh, 15 minutes, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and end this here. So they've been playing cat and mouse so far. It seems like neither side wants to be committed to attacking, and so they're just playing games right now. But I don't know if it, I mean, I think that these guys, there is fear fighting Caesar, just because he's good. You know, he's a very good tactician in how he approaches things, and he has damn good soldiers. And so I think that those three, they all want to fight him, but nobody wants to be the first one. They want to be the one who comes in and kind of changes the battle, you know, turns the tide of the battle, as you would say, where now Caesar starts to lose. They seems like the three of them are throwing themselves out there, but they're not committed to it. They don't want to be the one to start it. They want to be the glorious one who comes in and finishes, or makes Caesar run, or something like that. That's how it seems to be going to me. At the same time, though, Caesar doesn't have enough men. So really, they're best to attack, but it's Caesar. You know, it's difficult. Of course, you know, I have hindsight here of 2,000 years, so it's really easy for me to make judgments on this. Well, I'm going to end this here. This is part 1 of this video, and then I'll do the next one. And of course, like, if I put this one up on a Monday, the next one goes up on Tuesday. And the next video after this is also going to be broken down, because that's 26 minutes. So I'm going to break that one down in 2 parts. So that was my stomach. Sorry, growled. All right, I'm going to end this here. Have a good day. Have a good night. Like and subscribe, or I'll murder you.